without further ado, I'd like to present Dr. Dennys Angove, what Citizens Climate Lobby is all about. Over to you, Dennys.
Thanks, Tom. One of the things that Tom mentioned was his view of Angus Taylor's view, and I thought I'd just bring something to you quickly from the recent meeting we had with Christine Hickey from Matt Keen's office, and they had just released their report. And in their report, their big plan, they say, quote, "The plan is financially supported by the bilateral memorandum of understanding on energy and emissions reduction policy between the Commonwealth and the New South Wales government." So there is a bilateral process going on, obviously something we don't know too much about, but that's a really good thing. Okay, well, I'm going to talk to you about what Citizens Climate Lobby is all about, and hopefully I'll get this thing to work. There we go. By way of personal introduction, I welcome all my existing CCL colleagues and all the new folk who are interested to hear what CCL is about. My name is Dennys Angove. I'm a retired atmospheric scientist from the CSIRO, and I got involved with CCL almost from the beginning because it is a logical and a very nice way of bringing down barriers and moving forward. Okay, so today we'll be doing, this is a training session essentially, and it's in two parts. The first part will be done by me, which is what we're going to do now, of course, and then later on in the afternoon, Andrew will be doing his thing. So I'm going to be talking about organisation and structure, some CCL values and methodology, and Andrew will also be talking about some of this. Tools for creating political will, how citizens go about generating political will, and carbon fee and dividend. I'm going to expand on beyond what Tom's already said, and lobbying training will be done by Andrew this afternoon. That can be good fun, actually. So CCL structure then. So CCL was set up in 2007. It came out of the United States, primarily because of the drivers by the climatologists James Hansen, Catherine Hayhoe and Daniel Kahneman. And James Hansen is a person of notable regard because he was the first person, he was a a NASA director, climatologist, and he realised from early modelling that there was something going on. He went to Congress in 1988, a big review there, and he wasn't very happy about what happened, so he decided that there needed something. So that's where basically CCL came from. It's a grassroots organisation, and its intention is to influence climate policy. Started in 2007. Now global, it's in about 28 countries, and there's in Australia it started in 2014. It's volunteer driven. It's comprised of groups and chapters. Now, chapters is normally the grouping name given in the United States, but in Australia we've tended to use the word groups, but we use groups and chapters interchangeably. I prefer the word group myself for personal reasons. We're divided into federal electorates in Australia and in the United States, and we have a national board. The national board is elected or appointed during our national conference in Canberra, normally held during the lobbying conference. And we have state coordinators, and in New South Wales our state coordinator is Peter Todd. And we also have group leaders, or group or chapter leaders. So the group leader, for argument's sake, or as an example, I am a group leader of the Barara electorate. And I could also be called a chapter leader of the Barara electorate. If you're a newcomer, you can find your group by contacting Howard through this email link, and Howard will only be too pleased to lead you in the right direction. So, CCL values and methodology. So I'm going to be talking to you about focus, what our principal focus is. Optimism. We are an optimistic organisation. Personal power, being non-partisan, diversity, which Jordan has already talked about to some extent, and the part on relationships and integrity are those values that Andrew will be talking about later on in the afternoon when he's covering the lobbying component. Okay, our principal focus. Our principal focus is simply a national carbon fee. So the point is, when you get lost in a conversation somewhere, always come back to this principal focus, which is the national carbon fee. The whole idea of a national carbon fee is to reduce carbon emissions. Excuse me. If we reduce carbon emissions, then the majority of problems will fade away. Not all of them, it's not the complete answer, but it is a significant answer. So that's what we're about. Optimism. We are an optimistic organisation. We believe people are good and democracy works, and that's what we try and do. We are not perfect. We can all improve, but we offer our CCL community support, and this support goes across the whole of Australia. It's not just because we're doing a New South Wales and Canberra regional conference here. We actually have people on today who are from Western Australia and other places. So it's a community. We're optimistic about what we can achieve because democracy does work. Personal power. Personal power is really important for us. Our voices and actions are powerful. And in the past, some folk have thought, what can I do? Well, what we try and do is we try and tap into that desire to do something. We try and lift people and bring them forward. We transform them from being spectators of the process to actually be engaged citizens to take part of the democracy. Sometimes it can be a bit onerous, but in the end, it can actually be a bit of fun when you start to see and satisfaction, and when you start to see things moving forward, which I believe we do in CCL. Now, power versus force. Now, Charles Reich was a professor of law at Yale, and he's a pretty amazing sort of person. He also wrote a book called The Greening of America, and if you haven't read it, I suggest you have a look at it. It's about a cultural change which he predicts is happening, and I think he might be correct. But what he did say was, when you reach out to another person through the energy or creativity within you, and the other person responds, you are existing power. That's your power. But when you make somebody else do something against their will, to me that is not power at all, that is force. And force to me is a negation of all power. Now, sources of personal power, there's some examples here. Now, many of us will know Dr. Kim Liu. Kim is an amazing person who's worked really hard for CCL, as well as all the other groups that she belongs to. And from a CCL point of view, Kim did say, CCL has given me the skills to lobby politicians and has been transferable to every other group I have joined. So the point to make here is that even though CCL may not necessarily be your cup of tea, if you are involved in another organisation, hopefully the skills that we can move to you or show you work you can use elsewhere. And the other person who was sort of an outstanding find really was this young man called Jonathan Harris, who came from America as an intern to be with CCL Australia in 2018, I think it was. He was a very quiet person, and by the end of it, and respectful, but by the end of it, he was just respectful. He was no longer quiet. And he did say that the increasing passion for the cause was fueled by the other CCL members he interacted with, and that is that's an unlocking, if you like, of personal power. And when have you experienced a breakthrough? Now, normally in a conference setting, we would ask this to the audience and people would think about it, but we can't do that necessarily here because it might be somewhat disruptive. So I'll give you an example of a personal experience, and that was when we had a lobby meeting with a member for Kingsford Smith. And one of the problems we've always had in Australia up to that time was that trying to get a modelling done on carbon fee and dividend in an Australian context. And as a result of that lobby meeting, we moved forward to find a person who gave us the modelling that we needed, and that became the Australian Climate Dividend Plan. That was a fantastic breakthrough, and from a personal point of view, it was, well, I have to say, it was enjoyable. We are non-partisan. This is really important for us. We're open to all who are serious about solving climate change. Now, some people find this hard to cope with at times because you might have a meeting that you have to have or you need to have with someone who you really disagree with. But if it's so bad that the meeting is going to be dysfunctional, then you should not proceed with the meeting. The whole point here is to find consensus, to find a common point, to move forward with them. We are non-partisan completely. We're open to all, and we will work with all, no matter how hard it is. And that can be hard from time to time. Diversity. Now, Jordan's already talked about diversity. We seek out and support and elevate people whose voices may not be fully heard. We empower everyone. That's our attempt. We attempt to empower everyone to experience their own personal and political power. And regardless of race, ethnicity, nationality, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, religion, or ability, that's what we do. Everybody can do something, and that's what we try to get people to be involved with. Okay, now to do this, we need tools, and the tools for building political will. But what is political will? Politicians don't create political will, they respond to it. And what does it look like? Well, political will is the clear demonstration of support in the electorate. Remember, we are electorate-based, from citizens, business leaders, societal and faith groups, and local officials. That means everybody. To be effective, it needs to be widespread. So if you're going to cause a change, everybody has to be moving forward together. And it needs to be focused on specific steps. And in our case, the specific step for Parliament is supporting carbon-free dividend, which is our primary focus. Levers of political will. How does CCL build political will? Now, it's not only CCL who can use these techniques. As I said before, other organisations you may be involved with can use these levers as well. They're essentially common sense. Lobbying, well, we lobby individually and all through conferences. Media relations, we can work with media in different ways. Grassroots outreach, we talk to people at the grassroots level. I'll expand on these in a minute. Grasstops outreach. Well, it's not only members of Parliament who are Grasstops, they're also leaders of other organisations. And the group and chapter development, that means how do we improve ourselves to be able to become catalysts of changing political will. So the lobbying lever, then, examples of what we can do. We can become a liaison person. So through the lobbying process, we have established certain people in MPs' offices that we can talk to and get feedback from and just have a relationship. We meet with parliamentarians. We be a subject matter expert. So what happens is we have people who come from different walks of life who are subject matter experts. But if you are not a particular expert, you might have the skill or interest in something to do with engineering or science, or just the way people are, the way people believe, how the anxiety of folk, that sort of deal. Everyone can become a subject matter. It requires sitting down and working through it and being involved with it, and you become an agent for change through the CCL process. What do liaisons do? Appoint person for a parliamentary staffer. Now, this happens, we've got a number of these happening already. There's 150 on the lower house and 76 Senate seats. So there's 226 opportunities here for everybody in CCL. In fact, we can take that number down, 226 down, to become a liaison person with a parliamentary staffer or electorate office staffer. We build relationships. The whole key of this process is to build a relationship, no matter how hard it might be for you. We have to move forward, find the common ground. We have regular contact with the office, request meetings with MPs and or their staff, and provide updates and relevant information requested. So what happens in a lobby meeting, we might ask if there's something that we can do for them, and they might offer us something that we might need. So we make sure that there's an exchange of information as much as we can as a result of the lobby meeting that may occur, which is a really powerful tool. The media lever. Be the point person for a media outlet. Okay, that means you be the key person to distribute information to a media outlet. Some people do this. We write letters and opinion pieces. This is a major tool we employ, and it happens across the country. Social media coverage. Well, we're involved with Facebook and Twitter and other processes. We meet with an editorial board. Now, I'm not sure that we've actually done this yet. We may have, but I'm not sure about it. But of course, if you were to meet the Murdoch editorial board, that would be a very interesting meeting, I would think. Radio and TV interviews. Well, our folk do this. We've had radio and TV interviews across the country. So all of these things are happening. Now, the point is that somewhere in here, there's something that every individual can do and contribute to. It doesn't matter how small it is, it doesn't matter how big it is. Everybody is an agent for change. Grassroots outreach leader, recruitment and education actions. Now, I saw a chat comment go forward a bit earlier about education and the need for it, and this is where we can make changes. One of the things we are doing is tabling. We meet the community. We go out there. Public speaking. We do public speaking. I've done public speaking. Other people do public speaking. Societal speaking. We go and talk to societies. University of Third Age, WAA, Provost, Rotary, whatever. We get engaged. Some people can do it more easily than others. It doesn't matter. If you can't do it, practice. We can help there. We can actually help people. Organising events. There's some people who organise events like crazy. George is a fantastic organiser, and Brian, and there are people all over the country who do this as well, which is really great. Grasstops outreach lever. Now, this is an important one that's happening now. So the point is, if you're going on a plan and you're not getting anywhere with your local member, then you go and find out what people who he or she may communicate with, and then you identify those folk and then you meet with them. You never give up. You try and seek endorsements. Now, I know some folk have been trying to do this. We haven't had a lot of success with this, but we are trying really hard, and some success has occurred out of Western Australia. We educate leaders. Well, we do this. Okay, the group and development leader. This is about ourselves as a unit. Okay, this is about making ourselves better at what we do. We organise and host meetings and events and training. We improve our communications within the team, within the group or chapter, between members and the community in which we live. We mentor new volunteers. This is really important. We try really hard to do this. Some people do fall by the wayside. We have to admit that because we are growing, but we attempt to overcome that. And this is one of the reasons why we have conferences like this, is to attempt to help new volunteers. If you are a new volunteer and you want to go further with this, don't let it rest. Communicate with one of us and we will help as best we can. And of course, Howard find Howard and he will point you in the right direction. So the levers in review are lobbying, media, grassroots outreach, Grasstops outreach, and group and chapter development. Okay, now focus review, the carbon fee and dividend policy. So the whole idea here is it's got three legs. So we place a fee on fossil fuels at the source, the mine, the well or the port, and notionally, this is the US model, we start at $15 per tonne carbon dollar equivalent and we increase it $10 per tonne annually. We return all the net revenues to households equally, protecting lower and middle class. And we have a border adjustment on goods imported from or exported to countries without an equivalent price on carbon. Now, out of the lobbying session came the Australian Climate Dividend Plan, which is very close to what I just showed you, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4 components which are important. The carbon tax, which at the moment is priced at $50 per megatonne. It'll implemented when the carbon enters the economy. It's appropriate to the emission sectors, electricity, direct combustion, transport, fuels and industrial processes. It has a carbon dividend. The proceeds returned equally within this plan are $1,300 per person per annum. So how that works out is that an average income household overall, when all the costs and outgoings are balanced against each other, an average household will be better off by about $585 per annum. There's a border adjustment on exports and imports, and the rollbacks, the immediate rollbacks on subsidies, immediate, is $2.5 billion, which is much less than what Tom was talking about overall. And if you want to find out more, you can go to this link, but if you just search Australian Climate Dividend Plan, University of New South Wales, you'll find it. Okay, so we're getting close to the end. Some CCL lobby outcomes. The first one to talk about comes out of the United States, and they struggled for a long time trying to get Republicans and Democrats, even Democrats, to come together. And eventually they managed to come up with a bipartisan climate solutions caucus, and they've got equal Republicans and equal Democrats. Now, as a result of this, in 2018, this is not many people know about this, but they submitted the Energy and Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act to Congress, and it's still there. It hasn't been chucked out, and people are still discussing and trying to move it forward, which is a really good thing. This came out of a CCL initiative. They now have 65 plus 9, 65 in the House of Reps and 9 congressmen, senators. So it works out to be 74. They've still got a long way to go, but it's great. In Canada then, this came as a result of CCL activity. The carbon fee and dividend is now in Canada. It was originally a similar one was in British Columbia, and I think there might have been one of the other provinces, I can't remember. That was actually put in place at function all of 2019. They got their first dividend check to $385 back in April, but we're still waiting what the infantry report is yet. It hasn't been released yet, but that is in place, and it did work, and they learned a lot about it in terms of process I'm talking about. And then we have this one. So in 2018, CCL set about a program to try and get what we call the Parliamentary Friends of Climate Solutions, which is different to the title here. And after a lot of hard work across the whole of the country, this wonderful lady, Rebecca Sharkey, the member for Mayor, realised that this was a fantastic idea, and our colleagues in South Australia worked with her, and they just ran with it, and it became the Parliamentary Friends of Climate Action instead of Solutions. So that was fantastic. And they are working there, and you can see it was gazetted in February 2019 after the last election. Of course, there was a change, and we have now these 3 people. Now, the thing to talk about here is that all of these people are ladies, which I think is really fantastic. So the Australian Climate Dividend Plan, I've already talked about this. This came a result of a lobby meeting of a member for Kingston. It came from a lobby meeting, so that's a really good thing. So this is the last slide, and this is an image of Gulaga, Mount Dromedary in the south coast, home of the Yuin people of New South Wales. And this elder said in 1978, this land is part of us and we are part of it. It has always been so in the past, will also be in the future. We and the land are one. I would like to change his words a little bit and replace the word land with the word earth. And I think when you do that, the power of that is just amazing. Thank you.